Good evening, everyone. A friend of mine asked me to give her some ideas on playing smoothly, legato, in Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring. And that's the book there, and the piece. And there's a lot of ideas that if you have those basically in your mind, using weight touch, then you not only develop muscle memory, but you create the legato. So to have no gaps, which is what she's suggesting, my friend is Sandra, she's suggesting no gaps in Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring. So between the phrases and all the line, if you listen to Dinu Lapati playing it, you've got a great reference right there. It's got to be smooth. So if you can imagine that there's a trampoline on the bottom of the key, and each finger, when you release on the way up and flop right through to the floor, each finger is going to be making a wave. It's a wave-making machine, your hand. And there's no bones in your hand. You don't think of bones in the hands. You think of each finger playing down from the main arch, but a supple hand, very free and loose. And when you can do that, you're not going to be afraid of going deep in the key, but you're going to make that wave. And when you can link it to the next note, once you're in and you're hanging on that note, then you're connecting smoothly. So if you take something like this piece, Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring, and if I go really slowly, and I won't use the pedal, I'll just go without the pedal. I want units of 3, like a bird coming down into a nest. It's going to flutter its wings, flap its wings as it settles in. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, up to 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But each one has got to have that connecting, linking. So when you can loosen up your hands, sink in, it's weight touch, but you can float, you can carry a lot of your weight. But if the finger's going down deeply into that trampoline as you sink in, you won't be afraid to play down, but release on the way up. So there's drop, so drop and draw. Now I could make it even more smooth. The pedal. And in my mind, I'm counting all the time 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, because Bach is color control and beats, so it has to have that smoothness, that steadiness. And so every note has to have an equal length. There's a kind of like a density to it. Ya, da, 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 da. The trick is to not poke, because that's what gives that. Hear the difference? And so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So imagine coming in with emotion and feeling into each key. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now another part of her question was, how about memory? How do you memorize? And you need to be able to do heavy practice. It doesn't sound that great, but you need to develop muscle memory. That's what's going to give you the ability to have the piece. Yes, you need to understand the harmony of the piece. You need to understand the harmonic progressions. But beyond that, there's total muscle memory that has to be developed, and slow, heavy practice. When you come down into the key, now when I go to the next key, yank, all in the hand, yank that finger up as fast as you can while you're still hanging on the key. And when you can do that kind of thing, you'll be surprised that you've developed a muscle memory that carries you through when you're going to play the piece. When you're not even thinking about it, the muscles just remember where they're going. And that lift is so important. You need the clean release. You don't want a blur. Like you want an overlap. You want this to overlap, 2 down at once for a split second, but then immediately yank that one up and lift it high, yank it far up in the air while this is totally free. Because then you can crawl to the next note and the muscles will remember where they're crawling to. They just remember it because they've done it slow, heavy, high lift so much. So I'm lifting 2, 3, 4. Now I dropped in that, I made my wave, and now I'm crawling over to the next note, and then I'm cleanly releasing that second finger. So, really slow. The tone doesn't sound that great because it is heavy, and it's like you're pounding the keys, but you're not pushing it down, you're just heavy, balanced on the keys. Now every day I do my Siva King exercises, starting with the 1 finger exercise and the left, and the whole 40 minutes of it, or whatever it takes, 45 minutes. And then at the end of that, I take certain pieces that I want to keep in my hands, and I do a line or so of that piece, slow and heavy, just as a technical exercise to make it stay in my hands. And it keeps the muscle memory fresh, and then I'm not so afraid to be relaxing the hand when I want it to flow and just play effortlessly. When you watch someone like Tiffany Poon, you see so much freedom in her hands. It's like she's able to have this distance that she's able to control. But when I'm doing it to get it in my hands, keep it in my hands, I'll be doing it really yanking the unused fingers high without tightening the hand or pulling up in the wrist. Just crawling the weight from one spot on the keyboard to another and making it smooth. So in this piece, you've got all these different sections, like it's got the part that's this. Then you've got the chorale part where it comes like you. And when you get the right notes. You see it's heavy, and I'm bringing out the thumb of the left. Smooth, so I'm aware that I'm lifting high, but I've got no gaps. I'm trying to make it smooth, and then when the melody comes on the soprano, I really feel you're anchoring that weight in. It's the fingers going deep into the trampoline, and you're making that wave, that connection. This muscle's really strong on the side of my hand because that's your melody on the top. So you've got to turn the hand like a doorknob that way. You have to be right in the keys with all your weight. In other words, there's no fudging it. It's no superficial stuff where I'm sort of in it. That wouldn't cut it, you see. And in my mind, I'm saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Because Myra has tenuto signs on all those melody notes. They have to be brought out, even though in the end it's cantando, it's singing in the soprano, and it's soft. So it has to be a steel finger, and that's what closes and what open work against each other. Make that finger firm. Make the wave down from the knuckle as you make this wave with this, and the hand is flexible left and right to make this wave. So, and your whole back comes into it. It's your whole body, your seat, everything. And release on the way up gives you time to get out and in to be able to make a wave on that top note. Then when it comes into this new part, you spread there because it's coming into something completely different and more loud. And this is your thumb in the left. You see how it's the left thumb and the left thumb, and then, so I'll do it again, let's see now. Make a wave, dip deep into it, into the trampoline, and spring off like. So anyway, I hope that gives you a few ideas on both memory and legato, trying to connect your notes and crawl and make it sound smooth. When you go to play it, it's a different story than when you're practicing it like that to get it in your hands, to keep it in your hands for the memory. But in the end, that's what you want it to be able to do, is to sing and sound like a beautiful piece of music, and it has to be with emotion and with feeling and caring. Even it's Bach. You don't think of Bach as the same as Chopin, but it's because it's got the color, the control, and the beats. But it still has to have a tenderness and a gentleness into each note. Like if I go, I want to make a wave, so I've got to. But if I go slowly. Then if I add the pedal, gentle. See, no gaps. Everything is smooth. Just, you got to feel the weight rolling from left to right like a wave going left or right, whereas for the finger and the drop, it's vertical. You know, it's like in physics, force is a mass times an acceleration. So if you're touching the keys and you're right at the keys and you have no distance to accelerate the weight, you have no force. So then you tend to push, and that's no good for your sound because you're strangling the vibration of the wire. Then you're not making a sine curve, you're making cacophony, and it's just noise. So you've got to be able to think of physics, because force, if it's mass times acceleration, the acceleration is the acceleration of gravity. That's a force. That's accelerating you down. So if it drops that far in 1 second, it drops a lot further in the second second, and a lot further. And that happens for every object. It's the same. It could be a feather or it could be a cannonball. If you take a vacuum, put those items in a vacuum and drop them, they drop at the same speed, the same rate of acceleration. And so every particle of that arm has to be able to, and your back and your seat and everything, has to be able to drop at that same speed of acceleration, that same rate of acceleration. And it's that amount of mass that you have dropping times that amount of acceleration, which is gravity. And then you've got a force to contend with. And that's how you get huge. If you want a huge power, everything coming in, accelerating down. And then when you've got the finger playing down to make that wave in the trampoline and then spring off, you can, while it's in that process, you can link it to the next note and to the next, and make your line draw the attention of the listener, because you're connected physically with it in your hands. So anyway, I hope that gives you some ideas to think about. Have a good night now. Bye-bye.